Did you know that up to 82% of new managers are left completely in the dark, untrained, and searching for answers? That lack of preparation doesn't just hurt your new leaders. It holds your entire business back, draining morale and costing you productivity. Stop the clock on bad management. Golden Mean Consulting offers a proven, no-fluff approach to help your new managers build the right habits from day one. Our co-founders, Sonia and Jason, have over 20 years of experience in the trenches, so you can trust they know what works. To learn more, visit goldenmeanconsultinggroup.com. That's GOLDENMEAN consultinggroup.com.
Wherever you are on your leadership voyage, it starts here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Leadership Voyage, the podcast dedicated to your pursuit of becoming a great leader. I'm your host, Jason Wick, and today we've got a really good discussion for you with Andy Crocker. He is an interesting guy because he is a rocket scientist. I love saying that. I don't know why. He is a rocket scientist. He finished third place in the space race with loss just to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. So there's your marketing line if you were interested in what this all means. He's dedicated 5 years to human landing project of getting someone on the moon and working with NASA and winning that project, but they finished in third. They did not get it. And that was one of the catalysts among a couple of other things that inspired him to write this book, which is called the Unconditionals, and you will see what that's all about. If you are listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or elsewhere, please subscribe if you're just listening but don't follow the show. That would be wonderful. It helps spread the word, and the mission of the show is helping as many folks sharpen their leadership skills as possible. You can contact me anytime you want, Jason Wick, at startyourvoyage@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. Please don't be shy. A lot of folks have been contacting me with show ideas or getting people onto the podcast. So don't feel deterred. Don't be intimidated. Just send me something. What do you think? Did you like this about the show? Did you not like this show? Didn't like this guest? Didn't like this question? I'm happy to hear it. But anyway, let's get to the interview. Again, Andy Crocker, rocket scientist, author, and an all-around very thoughtful human being. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation about his book, The Unconditionals, here on Season 4 of Leadership Voyage. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Leadership Voyage. I am very happy to be joined today by Andy Crocker. Andy, it's nice to see you today.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining from Huntsville. I've not been there yet, but it sounds like a warm place this time of year. Is that true?
Yes, too warm right now. Yeah,
Okay.
Warm and humid. It's one of those where you get up in the morning and it's already just too hot and humid to walk outside. So can't wait for the fall.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm in Colorado, so a little drier. We get the 90s, but thankfully not too warm to walk outside in the morning. So
Right,
I'm
right.
thankful for that. Well, we're here today to talk about your new book and some of the content that lies within. And I'm sure whoever you talk to, they find a way to make a joke about rocket science. But I just want to let everyone know, so this is the opportunity where you can actually have a conversation and hear a rocket scientist, which is really funny and fun. So thank you for that. Your book is The Unconditionals: 5 Timeless Values to Live Without Limits and Ignite Your Superpower. And the reason that the rocket science piece becomes relevant here is kind of part of what you open this book with around a particular ambition you had and a failure that you've had.
Right.
Would you mind sharing that with us a little bit?
I'd love to. I had started thinking about writing down what became the book a long time ago. When I first started having kids, I decided I wanted to eventually write down things that I thought were important for them to know. And you always hope that you teach those things in the process of raising your kids, but I wanted to make sure that I conveyed those things and do it in writing. But you start with the best of intentions, and you realize that, oh, I'm running out of time. And so when my son became a senior in high school, it hit me, and I realized, wow, I got to really get on this. But what made it particularly um, impactful to me, and I think really what shaped the book in several ways, is that just about the same time, just a couple of months before I started the book, I had reached the end of a major project. And as you said, it was a great opportunity for an aerospace engineer, rocket scientist. I was leading a team to try to develop the next human landing system, which is just what it sounds like. It's the vehicle that will take humans to the moon. And the company I was working for, I kind of led the charge to get us involved, and we progressed and ended up competing with Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin. So it was our company and those two that were in the running for NASA to decide who would develop the landers. And it was about a 5-year effort from the beginning through several contracts, and building a team of hundreds of people in my company, and hundreds more, probably 1,000 people across the country supporting our efforts. Just a fantastic opportunity and experience in that worked with so many great people. And, obviously the mission is really exciting, but unfortunately we didn't win. We had two opportunities really to be selected, and we weren't selected either time. And when you have such a project that is such a um, motivational, exciting, one of those things where you're excited to get up in the morning and go work on it, it's hard to lose.
Mm.
And for me, it was really kind of devastating, in that I had been planning, this is going to be my career for the rest of my career. I'm going to be working on building the lander and then hopefully sending people to the moon. And and it just didn't pan out. So as I'm in the process of recovering, finding myself another project to work on, and also finding new projects for the hundreds of other people that we had on it, I started working on this book. Not at the time connecting it to that experience, but as I really got into writing it, and particularly when I had made most of the progress on it and kind of looked back, I realized that that experience had a lot to do with how I thought about these values, and in particular, how I thought about um, failure and what failure means. And a big piece of what I got out of that experience was that failure is okay.
Mm.
I like most of us, I grew up thinking failure is a problem. Failure is not an option. Is a phrase that was learned in aerospace and rocket science, and you kind of take that to heart. But truly, failure is how you learn, and failure is how you grow in many times, in many ways. And for me, that's been true. So it very much was a big motivator um, in how I wrote the book, and then how I got out of writing the book.
Do you know the real reason half your employees are looking to leave? Untrained first-time managers. You need a way to stop the bleeding, the expensive cycle of disengagement and turnover. It's time to flip the script from surviving to thriving. Let's equip your leaders to build engaged, loyal, and profitable teams. Sign your leaders up for our 6-week new manager bootcamp, a hands-on, accelerated program to grow and learn with like-minded peers, augmented by personalized coaching sessions. No theory, just simple tools that Golden Mean Consulting co-founders Sonia and Jason have used for over 20 years. Ready to invest in your team's success? Secure your spot now at goldenmeanconsultinggroup.com/services. That's GOLDENMEAN consultinggroup.com/services.
Yeah, thanks for that recap. I mean, we're talking about this convergence of you having this failure when you thought you were going to be working on something for the rest of your career and handling that, and maybe the light bulbs that set off,
Mhm.
along with this idea that you always wanted to write something for your children. I
Mhm.
haven't personally read all of it, just snippets, but it kind of reminded me of Nicomachean Ethics. If I think Aristotle wrote that for his son, if I understand correctly.
Okay.
And then also, in the book you talk about how kind of being, midlife or turning 50 or so, and all these things,
Mhm.
coming together and inspiring you to write this book in a winding pathway, as you also point out. It's
Right.
not the way you planned it necessarily, but we're going to get to these five um,
Mhm.
unconditional values that you point out. But before we do that, I wanted to bring up something that you write about early in the book, and you talk about the world today and how you suggest that the challenges of today aren't necessarily uniquely complex or difficult compared to those of the past. And I think a lot of people would differ just because, right? And maybe it's
Right.
recency bias or whatever you would like to call out.
Right.
But I really want to get into that a little bit because I'd love to hear what makes you draw that conclusion and why should that matter to us that our challenges today aren't necessarily unique or special.
Right. That point was really important to me to write about in the book. And um, as you read through the book, there's a section in each one of the chapters about answers and timeless wisdom. And what I realized as I kind of went back and looked at what other people have thought about values. You mentioned Aristotle, but there's, lots of others. There's Ben Franklin, and there's, all kinds of more modern authors. But as you go through, religion, religious doctrine, and you go through secular doctrine, philosophy, and all these things, the same values come up over and over again in response to whatever problems people are having. And really, when you kind of step back and look at it, yes, technology evolves, and so the way our problems manifest changes based on the technology. But just as technology creates issues, it also creates solutions in many ways, or it creates new ways to deal with those issues. So when you kind of strip away the things that are unique to a particular time, the fundamental the problems are the same. They're very, very similar. And therefore the values that are most effective in dealing with those issues end up being the same. And that's really why I call the values timeless, because you can find discussion of these values and how important they are, how crucial they are throughout history. Again, in religion and in philosophy and in lots of different places, popular culture even throughout history. But we often miss it because we feel like we're in this unique time, and it's going to take a unique solution to deal with it. I remember thinking many times during the COVID epidemic how tired I was of hearing the word unprecedented,
Yeah.
because all the time we say, well, this is unprecedented, that's unprecedented. And yeah, it's true that today is different than any other day that's ever happened in history, but most of the things that happen to us, one could argue all the things that happen are very similar to things that have happened in the past. So I was comforted, honestly, to realize that the lessons that we should take from those who've really thought about it, from Aristotle to William James to Stephen Covey, they've been thought through in times of struggle and times of challenge, and those things still apply. And that's really what I tried to put into the book, is what I think are the most important values that have come out of all of those struggles in the past.
That's a brilliant framing. Thanks for the explanation. I think it's very clear to everyone who's listening. And I love the word that you chose, comforting. We think we are facing novel challenges, and perhaps, as you called out, they're novel in its the particularness
Hmm.
of it. That's
Hmm.
fair. However, there's comfort in thinking that there are near limitless resources to draw upon that you can
Mhm.
leverage, right, to
Mhm.
solve or face whatever we're dealing with. And I think that's a really brilliant way to think of it. If I recall from the book, I think you said something like, we're not where we are today is not the what was it? It's not the culmination,
Right.
it's the accumulation.
Right.
And that's just like things clicked in place in my brain to see them in a different way with that line. So thank you for
Right.
writing that. Hopefully that lands for people. We're going to talk about, as much as we can, these
Mhm.
5 unconditional values. How does it all work together? We'll just scratch the surface a little bit.
Sure.
But for everyone listening, again, the unconditionals, 5 timeless values, you just referenced timeless values again in your last response.
Mhm.
They are love, gratitude, integrity, accountability, and endeavor. And
Mhm.
we're going to start with love, which is the one that I think you say is the foundation for the other 4. And here's a quote from your site, from Deanna Landers, who's the founder of morningcoffeebeans.com. This is what she wrote about your writing of unconditional love. And I quote, "This was the most accurate description of love I have read, next to the Bible. It made me stop mid-chapter many times to evaluate my love for myself and others." So congratulations on the company that, regardless of whether we're Christian or not, the point is, congrats on your chapter making it into this company of a legendary book.
Right.
And I think that'll humble you, right? I
Right.
think that in the book, here's what I wrote down. Here's the quote. "Unconditional love requires loving all people for no reason except they are human. We may not know them, or they may seem different, but because they exist, we should love them." How does this apply to leadership or being in the workplace?
Mhm.
How does that fit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're right. It is humbling when somebody says what Ms. Lander said, and but what I really felt was important, and what influenced me to make love kind of the centerpiece, the foundation for all the values, is it's not just the Bible. It is, all religious documents, and all great thinkers of the past, or at least a large number of them, have emphasized the importance of love. Now, some talk about it in different ways. They refer to it as different things, but when you get down to it, love, and I talk about it in terms of respect, kindness, and compassion, a genuine desire for others' well-being, and a desire to help others uh, do well. That is, I think, cross-cutting across history. And so um, I believe that it's critical to us personally, it's critical to us in our relationships, but that it also has to apply in the workplace. It has to apply in our uh, places of work and in leadership positions, because it is so fundamental to us as people. And the way that manifests in the workplace and in leadership positions is that we give respect and kindness and compassion to everybody that we work with, to the people who work for us, the people who work with us, the people we work for, and especially the people who we encounter who don't work in our companies. It's so easy. I know, because I've had these feelings myself. It's so easy to have a us versus them
Mm.
mindset in dealing with other companies, particularly competitors. But it's really a critical aspect of being able to work effectively with others and in the workplace, to have just a baseline, as unconditional as possible,
Yeah.
as humanly possible, respect and kindness and compassion for everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what place they're coming from, physically or figuratively.
I love your answer, Andy. You know, yeah, we have competitors. We want to quote unquote win or be one of the winners and all that stuff. But
Mm,
boy, in an industry, you'd like to think that what's the saying? Rising tide lifts all boats, something like
exactly.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That if we are all in this together trying to influence the world or society or do something great in our industry, then that should still demand kindness and respect to other human beings. They're all humans, as you're saying. And I love it because I think, love is truly maybe the only resource we have in unlimited supply,
Right.
right? We can truly just choose to exercise it whenever we want. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Well, and what's so great about love, and I think it's true of all these values, but in particular, love is it's I express this in the book in terms of how we feel about our children, but I think it's true of how we feel about everybody. You're afraid when you have your second child that you're not going to have enough love for
Right.
that second child. You've given it all to the first, and so you don't have any left for the second. But you realize that you have an infinite amount. And
Right.
so that's true with other people. Just because you have loved ones in your family and you have friends and you have others doesn't mean you lack the ability or capacity to give more. You always have more. And the beautiful thing about it is as you give it away, you get more back.
Hmm.
So it is a zero a positive sum instead
Yeah.
of a zero sum value that the more you give away, the more you get back, and more is created.
And I think we're all looking for positive some things these days. There's
Right.
so much anger and division, right? So I think that's a fantastic thing to bring up. I love that. And also to kind of go back to what Deanna Landers said in that quote about the book,
Hmm.
we're also including ourselves in this too,
Hmm.
right? So
Absolutely.
so that's a big component.
Yes.
So gratitude,
Mhm.
unconditional gratitude is the second value. Each of your chapters on these five values has a different section, like what it is, why it matters, et cetera, et cetera. And one of my favorites is where do we go wrong?
Mhm.
And so when we talk about gratitude, unconditional gratitude, where do we go wrong?
The two main things that I emphasize in that chapter about where we go wrong are worry and complaint. And I really intentionally chose those two as compared to gratitude because I think worry is a future looking, it's something where we can't control it because it's going to happen in the future, but we're going to tie up our brain with that worry. Complaint is more tends to be more past or sometimes present, but certainly another area where either we can't control it or it is something that may not need to be controlled, but it very often is past focused. But gratitude in its purest form is really present
Hmm.
focused. And it's here's what I have, and I'm going to appreciate what I have. What I have, who I am, where I am. I will appreciate those things for what they are and try to do so unconditionally, no matter what the circumstances. And there are so many beautiful examples. I chose a couple for the book, but there are so many out there of people that you just never would imagine could have a deep level of gratitude because they've been through so much, they've suffered so much, but they're the ones who show gratitude closest to unconditional
Hmm.
of most of us because they have shed those burdens of having to worry about all the things that they could have, knowing that what they have is already wonderful. Being alive is
Yeah.
already wonderful. So uh, the getting the bogged down by worry and complaint in particular tends to be very conditionally focused. And if we turn to unconditional gratitude and appreciate what we have, it's so much more fulfilling personally.
Well said. Thanks for that, Andy. I mean, so yeah, we're trying to find a way where we're not complaining about the past or worrying about the future, but mindfully engaging and appreciating the present. And I think that's
Mhm.
well said and something that can benefit any of us. Unconditional gratitude, a wonderful thing to strive for. Your third value in this book is integrity. And this is more of, I mean, I'm trying to pick a variety of different types of questions for the different
Yeah,
values. And
sure.
and you definitely, I have to agree with Deanna with her testimonial that, or her review in that, definitely certain things in this book have made me think a different way.
Hmm.
So you point out during the discussion of integrity that honesty and integrity are different. And I don't know that I have honestly, no pun intended there, that I had thought about this before. So could you explain to us what's the difference between integrity and honesty?
Sure. Uh, Integrity is, I think, the hardest one to wrap our brains around of these five values because we use it in so many different contexts and somewhat loosely. But when you really look at the initial core meaning, where the word comes from of integrity, it is tied to, it has the same root as the word integer from math, which means whole, like a whole number. And integrity really means wholeness. It means being consistent and whole and complete. And it does absolutely include honesty, but so often we equate honesty with integrity, but integrity is more than that. Integrity is being consistent in our thoughts, words, and actions all the time, or striving for that all the time, being consistent in private and public, being authentic, in other words, being fair, having loyalty when you say you're going to tie yourself or connect yourself to supporting someone that you do that. And then what really kind of stands out is often when we show moral courage, when we
Mm.
have this feeling of what we want to do and we have the courage to do it in even difficult circumstances. So I think what makes integrity more than just honesty is that it's about wholeness. It's about being consistent and whole and aligned with who we want to be every day, no matter what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes something unconditional, right? Is it
Absolutely.
doesn't waver in the face of external factors, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned a lot from that chapter, and I'm kind of going back to the word comfort. I'm kind of comforted that you say that one is perhaps the most challenging, because for me, I was like, okay, all right, this sounds extremely hard, and
Right.
uh, you always want to think that you will do the right thing when no one's looking,
Right.
but hey, we're fallible, so.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, wonderful value. Thank you. Unconditional integrity. I think accountability, the fourth one, is one that a lot of people can relate to. In business, we talk about being accountable for something, accountable for your team, accountable for results, profit and loss, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
But you do have a nice framework for accountability, a
Mhm.
path to accountability. Can you step
Mhm.
us through that?
Sure. Fundamentally, accountability is about owning it. It's about when we have a duty or obligation, responsibility, we recognize that and we own it. And so the framework has to start with acknowledgement, acknowledging that you have an obligation, a job, a duty, whatever it is. So starts with acknowledgement. And I should have started by saying it's the first four letters of accountability. So ACCO are
Mhm.
kind of the personal framework, but acknowledge is first, and then the second C is consequences, and that means think about what the consequences could be. You've got a duty or you've got a job to take care of, and you recognize that what you say or do is going to have consequences. So you think about those, but then you've got to then move on to the next C, which is complete. You complete whatever it is, and that's certainly the thing that we all have to work most on with
Mhm.
accountability is actually following through and completing whatever it is we've signed up for. We've got to be reliable, and that's such a key part of accountability. And then finally, the O is own. And the key part of that is to make it unconditional, you have to own whether it's good or bad, whether the results are positive or negative, whether they're good for you or bad for you. because the job is yours, the obligation belongs to you, you have to own that outcome. And accountability ties really closely in with integrity, with endeavor, with all of them. But it means if you own the outcome, then you can grow from whatever happens, and that ties into some of the part of endeavor. So that's the framework: acknowledge consequences, complete, and own. And I think those are the key steps to really being accountable.
Is there one of those points in the path that you think, as people, were most likely to fall down?
I think it depends on the person, but I would say complete. That's the crux of accountability, and complete is you actually follow through all the way through the end of whatever the task is. I think that's like when I'm talking to my kids. It's if you're washing the dishes, that's your job for tonight. It's not just you wash these dishes here, but you got the whole thing, and you actually complete the full task. But I think there are also people who don't think about the consequences. They don't think about, hey, the outcome may not turn out the way I want, and I have to be able to accept that. So think through the consequences, know what could happen, but you still have to complete the task, even though it might not work out the way you want.
Yeah, thanks. I think that I definitely follow the complete part. I mean, it's always for most people, it's always alluring to start something new, right? And kind of
Right,
leave the last 8% of something unfinished or not, closed
right.
out. I think very simple framework the way you outline it. So thank you for that. Accountability, ACCO, acknowledge, consequences, complete, and own. Wonderful. Thank you. And for those of, I haven't said this outright yet, but I definitely recommend this book to anyone listening. It's a great read. It's an investment. I'm not, there are a lot of ebooks that are shorter these days, okay? So it is going to take time. However, it's probably better to read fewer books deeply than it is to read a lot of books shallowly. So just to say that, it's a great read. A lot of epiphanies happening for me looking through the text here. Let's get to the fifth value.
Mhm.
And again, with this one too, I don't think I ever thought of endeavor
Mhm.
as a value. We just talked about conditionality versus
Mhm.
unconditionality. How do we let conditionality get in our way in the pursuit of endeavor?
Right. I certainly appreciate that. You don't hear of endeavor as a value very often, and I'll be honest. I struggled with should it be one of the values? How is it one of the values? How should I talk about it? I came down on the side of including it because I really think for us to live in the world, we have to act, we have to strive, we have to do. You can be an ascetic and live on a mountain somewhere, and maybe what you're doing is not really endeavor per se. But I think if you're in the world, you're living and you're doing. And I called it endeavor because there are so many pieces of it that I really wanted to call out. Effort, is a critical piece, and maybe for some people that is the piece, but it's got to have purpose, and it's got to have, attitude. It's got to have some of the other things that I talk about. And then the critical aspect is that you end with growth. So conditionality tying into endeavor is if we don't at least try to have these different aspects, and again starts with purpose, and it has effort and preparation, these key aspects, if we are halfway going about, say, preparing for an endeavor, and we don't want to take that on fully, we're likely to fall short in the
Mm,
endeavor. If
mhm.
if we don't give our full effort, when we go halfway on that because we're just not willing uh, to try hard, um, or if we're not willing to persevere, we hit a roadblock and we're going to stop there because it doesn't feel good. Um, though all of those things are conditional, and that means we're not going to achieve the results that we'd like to achieve in that endeavor, or certainly we're not going to grow, which is really the key part, personally in that endeavor. So conditionality, I think, in how we act and how we do is just as important to keep in mind and to try to avoid by being unconditional as with the other values.
Yeah, there's that theme of completeness again, kind of. We talked about
Hmm.
it in accountability, and now you're speaking to it in
Hmm.
endeavor, and the goal being growth at the end of the line, which is,
Hmm.
I mean, I spoke to someone earlier this season, Don Schmenka, he's at MIT and stuff, and
Yeah, I
his
listened to
latest,
that. Yeah.
oh, okay, his latest book is just about failure,
Yeah.
and it's funny because you can't truly fail, I suppose, unless you go through the full endeavor and you gave it your all, and then you look back, right?
Yeah. You certainly don't get out of failure what you
There you go.
could if you don't go all the way through, right? You can fail by just quitting
Of
at the
course, true.
beginning.
But the growth
And
here.
but you don't grow out of that. So I think one of the biggest impacts on me by writing the book was, I don't know if it's a realization or just a reminder, but of how important failure is to success.
Oh,
Failure is a stepping stone. It's not a roadblock. Yes, it may be an obstacle to completing the task in the way that you had planned, which I think is kind of the way Don talks about it. You've got an expected way this is going to turn out, and it doesn't turn out that way. Maybe that's a failure, but you learn that you can't do it that way and you have to do it a different way, and you grow from that. So failure is really a prerequisite for the growth that we need.
yeah, brilliant. Before we get to the wrap up portion here, I have one last question for you. And, we talked about unconditional love kind of being the foundation for the other four values, but really the superpower element from your title, if I read it right,
Mhm.
it's putting this all together. And there's a quote in here that you have to your children. It says, "To my children, if you embody all the values in this book, you'll be among the best people in the world. If you usually strive for most of them, you'll be a better person than I." There's a heaviness to this, though, Andy. So I ask you, for people who are listening this, they're grokking all of this. They're like, this sounds fantastic, but holy crap.
Right.
What's one piece of advice you could give to them to begin this journey of living more unconditionally without feeling overwhelmed or like they're having to push a boulder up a hill?
I'd say, first of all, what I mean by superpower is not that you become a superhero, but that you stand out. First of all, you're different than you were before. Individually, you have made progress, you've grown, and you stand out from who you were before. And then secondly, if you're really striving for one or more of these values on a consistent basis and making progress slowly but surely, you're going to stand out among other people. And that's really kind of the definition of a superpower, is standing out. People look at you and say, wow, what does that person have going on? Um, so so superpower isn't intended to be, wearing a red cape, but it's intended to be um, becoming better and better, better than yourself previously, and also in a way that people will recognize. And how to do that, I think, yes, it's hard. These are big goals, but it's always, as with any good goal, a step-by-step process. So you say, this is a value that I struggle with. Maybe it's integrity or maybe it's accountability. I struggle with this. I'm going to take one step. And let's say it's integrity, and I'm struggling with being consistent, being the same person, at home and at work and in my relationships. And that's where I'm struggling. So I'm going to decide I want to be a person who's consistent. And what do I need to do to become that person? And then I'm constantly going to be working on aligning myself in my thoughts and my words and my actions with that type of person. And so taking one step in the direction of unconditionality with one of these values is, I think, it's still hard, but it's something all of us can do. And by doing that, we are aligned with the people we want to be, and therefore we eventually become more of the people we want to be.
Yeah, again, very comforting and encouraging. Thanks for that response, Andy. I appreciate that. Before I get to the last question, I always ask everyone on Leadership Voyage, where would you like people to go if they want to connect with you or check out the book or elsewhere or otherwise?
Yeah, the easiest way is just go to andycrockerbooks.com. You can connect and find the book in all its formats. It's pretty much available everywhere and in all the usual formats. But there's a single link there that'll take you to all those, so you can choose what you like. You can find out more about me, and certainly I invite you to connect with me. There's a way to do that on the website, or you can do so on LinkedIn or some of the other platforms.
Perfect. And that'll be in the, I'll be in the show notes to connect with Andy. So everybody, you can check that out.
Great.
So I ask everyone on this show the same question at the end. So in about 60 to 90 seconds of time, Andy, you have, what's something that you've learned recently?
I love communicating with other people about things that I strongly believe in, like having written the book and these values, but I also am reminded of how much I love hearing other people's reactions and hearing their own perspectives. And so, just honestly, the opportunity to be on your podcast and other opportunities to speak to people about the book has reinvigorated me, frankly. And I've really enjoyed that. So, again, not a revelation maybe, but certainly a reminder that I enjoy that so much. And just talking about issues like this are so important.
It is so important, and yeah, thank you for sharing the wisdom that you've found so far in your journey with everyone. And like I said already, I encourage everyone to go out and check this book. So, thank you so much for sparing your time, Andy. It's really been a joy for me.
Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
There you go, folks. If you'd never heard a conversation with a rocket scientist who just lost to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, now you have. And we got to talk about why he wrote this book and a lot of the contents within. So yes, Andy Crocker was inspired to write the Unconditionals earlier in his life, but he didn't really get around to doing that until more recently when a few things happened. One, he failed in getting this contract to get to the moon. His oldest son was ready to graduate from high school. And third, he kind of reached this midlife point and wanted to share wisdom that he saw and how these pieces all came together. And I think that's one of the themes in this season of Leadership Voyage is a lot of folks really wanting to share and help others find great results, which is what I admire about all these folks who are taking the time to talk. So as we've heard kind of in detail, his failure in the human landing project is what led to the realization that he should write this book, but also this idea that failure is okay. And someone who's in midlife, in mid-career, kind of having that epiphany that failure is okay, and that is where growth happens. We love that. And Don Schmenka talked about that in depth, right, earlier in this season with his book Winners and Losers as well. Andy says the challenges we face today are not unique. I almost did it. Unique New York, right? Our challenges are not unique today. They kind of how they manifest themselves. Sure, of course, it's specific to this time, but we can find comfort in that similarities have come up in the past and that there is timeless wisdom to draw from, right? It doesn't answer all your problems, but there is this limitless supply of resources that you can use to look at how you have to face the world, which is fantastic. So in the book, The Unconditionals, right, he talks about these 5 unconditional values: love, gratitude, integrity, accountability, and endeavor. We talked about love. It does apply in the workplace. We're talking about treating everyone with respect, right? Even competitors. And the great thing about love, you have an infinite supply. It applies to yourself. You get more when you give it. All these great things. We talked a little bit about gratitude and how, you can go wrong with this in terms of looking back or looking forward. And that generally manifests itself as worry or complaint. Integrity comes from the word integer. I did not know that. And it implies whole. It's more than just honesty. Talking about accountability as a value, he has this acronym ACCO: acknowledge, consequence, complete, and own. We talked about that. and endeavor, which I thought was an exciting one, something I hadn't really thought about as a value. It's a pretty unique concept here. You need effort, purpose, attitude, and growth, and you have to get all the way to the end if you want to grow, even from a failure in that endeavor. Failure is a stepping stone to success. It's not a roadblock, and I think that's one of the great learnings that Andy called out today. So, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. The book is it's deep. It's a lot to it, and it's worth the time. But yeah, it exceeded my expectations from when I picked it up. So I definitely encourage you all to check it out. Go to his site in the show notes and see what you think about the Unconditionals. Until next time, everybody take care.